Okay, rose painting. We've got our drawing done. And let's just have a look at the photo. And this is the most important bit. We're going to do some planning. Now, this does look pretty complicated. So we're going to try and simplify this as much as possible, but still retaining the sense of the blooms opening up and the petals and this lovely stuff going on in the vase. So let's just look at the values. So we've got these flowers are fairly light in value. There's some dark pieces here and there in the shadows. So we're going to do a light wash that completely ignores basically the outlines of the flowers and the nice wet wash, just to put in some base colour for those flowers. And it won't matter that we go over the lines, because we're going to go back in after it's all dried and put in these lovely green darks, and that will really bring out the blooms and make them pop. So we have light for the base of the flowers. The base, when I say sort of the base, these pieces. And that's quite a light yellow. That's really quite a light pink. This is a really dark green in there. You can see that. That's very deep down there. And that's kind of a mid-value green in there. It's darker than you think. And for the vase, we can do a lot of the work with kind of a mid-value green, and little accents of red, dark greens up here, and then this grey colour. Now, if we put this over here, it's quite a light grey colour. And I might get my value, actually I'll get my chips out just to see how light that is. Oops, I've got my water jug by my knees. Let's have a look. This is I reckon that's a value 8. It's not quite as light as that, but it's close. Yeah, so this is quite a light value grey. It's still quite a neutral grey. Slightly blue. Okay. And most of the accents on this vase are that grey, so we don't need too many values in here. We need a dark green, kind of a mid green, this red colour, and this mid-value grey. So that shouldn't be too tricky for us. Let's put that down again. Let's do some colour matching for these flowers. Now, the one thing I'm worried about is getting the form on these flowers. So this base colour is probably relatively easy to do. It's yellow. And it fades out to very high value in certain places. But these shadows are worrying me. Let's do some colour swatches for those yellows. Now let's first of all just try this. Yeah, okay. Now if I put that over there, that's probably very close to our lemon yellow. It might be slightly towards the orange side. Right, try and remember to fill in my swatches this time. Might be slightly to the orange side, but I think it's probably going to be fairly close. Let's just put a bit of my yellow gets contaminated all the time. Right, yeah, I can see, okay, that's slightly too green. I could use some cadmium orange in this, but I'm actually going to use this, which is a bit of vermilion. If you've got a bit of cadmium red or naphthol red or something like that, that would be right. Yeah. Now that is probably just about right. So let's put that down there. That's going to be our base colour. Now the tricky bit is going to be to define these petals that roll over. They've got shadows underneath them. We need to get that colour as close as we can, and it's a couple of values down, and it's kind of a yellowy, it's kind of an orange colour actually on that one. I don't know if you can see on the screen there, just at the bottom. And this one, it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of a, okay, let's try and get that colour. Right. Don't want it to go green. We don't want to take a yellow and just make it darker with black or something, because that will turn it green. But we don't want to put in a brown, because it's not brown. Let's try, okay, let's just something that'll stick. Now, and the value of it, I think it's kind of a, yeah, I think it's kind of a mid value. I'm just comparing that shadow to the grey on my colour isolator, and I think it's a mid value. I'm going to make another swatch. Now, we said we're going to do this in layers, so we're going to put this over the yellow when we're doing it. I'm going to take a little bit of burnt sienna. Now, right, now that is far too brown. Let's put in a bit of my orangey red. And I'm not going to put it in the swatch, I'm just going to put it next door to it. And I think that's too orangey, I don't like that. I know it does look orangey on there. I'm also looking down here. Let's try, I don't want to get this wrong. If we get this wrong, all the yellow flowers will read wrong. Alright, let's try a bit of yellow ochre and a bit of yellow. No, that's not dark enough, is it? Maybe a bit of burnt umber. Let's use a bit of burnt. I don't have any raw umber on here. It might be the best thing. Right. Now I'm just looking at that and then looking over here. And I think that might be okay. I'm going to fill in my swatch. But also while I'm here, I'm going to just try putting in just sort of emulating these shadows under there. See how that looks against that. Yeah, I think we might be okay here. Alright. Don't want to make it too orange. Just going to take my other brush and smooth that out a bit. It looks very, very dark on the screen, which I can't really help about that. But I'm comparing what I've got and what's kind of over there. I think we'll be okay with that. So what was that? That was yellow ochre and a little bit of burnt umber. My burnt sienna was too orange. Trying to emulate a bit of flower. I think I ruined that. Okay. Well, let's keep that. Let's try the pink ones next. Now, our base colour is really quite light for these pink flowers, because let's put it there, yeah. And I think that's going to be almost pure permanent rose, but watered down to the right value. So if I take a bit of my permanent rose, you could use alizarin, but it might not be pinkish enough, but I think you'll be close. And pencil. Actually, that is slightly too dark. Yeah, I'm not even going to, I think it is, I think, slightly more orange than that, but it's very, very, very close. Okay, so that's really quite light there. And then the dark pieces, So we've got some over there, they're very dark permanent rose. Let's have a look at that bit. So let's just pick that up again. Draw another swatch. Now I'm going to rinse up my brush, and really I'm not going to need much water on it at all, so I'm really dabbing it on my paper towel. I'm going to get pure permanent rose. Yeah, I might just warm that up a little. I think they're going slightly warmer. And I shouldn't say warm, I'm going to move it towards orange. Just a little bit of yellow in there. Yeah, I think let's try it again. Let's just try then smoothing that out just to see how that. Yeah, this is exercise paper, so it's not smoothing very well. Yeah, that looks about right, doesn't it? It's got a nice intense colour, but I think it'll be fine for the shadows. Inside that rose. Right, so this is basically pure permanent rose with just a smidge of lemonette yellow, just to pull it slightly towards the orange. Nice. And the colours look good there. Still worried about this one, but we will see. We will see what it looks like. Okay, the next I think I want to do two more. Let's do a light green on here and a dark green. So, or maybe a mid green and a dark green. So mid green. Yeah, let's do the mid green. Alright, let me just pick that up. Now, this green in here. Now it's actually, yeah, it's a mid-value, maybe slightly darker. And it's quite a yellow green, this thing. So let's start with yellow. And it's quite bright. Now we could keep it that bright, or we could take some of the chroma out. I don't know if I want it to be too Zappo. Let's try making a green out of this with a bit of black. Okay, it's a bit too much black. Now, this won't be the right colour. It's about the right value though. Yeah, it's about the right value. Do we want to make this slightly brighter? I'm not sure actually. Okay, let's try another mix. So this is lemon yellow, and I'm going to use my greenish blue, which is cobalt. Phthalo would do it. You'd need almost nothing of phthalo to do this. Yeah, it's a lot brighter, you see. I think that's going to be a bit light. Yeah, it's far too light. It's a little bit of black. That's getting close to it. So it's going to be a choice between this one and that one. I haven't decided which. I think I'll probably go with the one without that much chrome. I just don't want it to look like... I just don't want it to look too bright. And I think the colours of the flowers will pop more, be brought out more if we don't make the leaves too bright. That's gonna bit of magic cleaner on, magic eraser on the palette just to get the colours off. Ugh. Okay. Oh, and we're going to do that dark green. Now the dark green should be fairly easy for us, because this one, I think, I'm not going to go nuts over chroma here. So I think we can just use the lemon yellow. and black, which will take us really quite dark. Is this one? I haven't filled in my swatch, sorry. And if you want to, maybe a bit of blue just to give it some richness. Yeah, that's a nice colour. It's not too high chroma. It's not quite as dark as that, but I think that will be good for us. Okay, and just sitting back and just looking at the colours we put out, looks good. If your colours don't look nice together on this pre-swatch, they'll never look good on the painting, I have found. Right, let's get cracking. Right, now I'm going to use a fairly big brush for this. I'm going to use a 12 round, and we're going to do this in layers, and we're going to ignore basically where the foliage is to begin with. We're going to put on, I think we'll put on our yellow to begin with, and we're going to go out intentionally outside the lines. Now, the only thing we need to be aware of is that there are some lighter pieces in this yellow flower, these yellow flowers. There's this piece here, which is kind of almost like a highlight. It's showing the curve of that petal, and the edges of these petals and the edges up here. So we're going to go easy on these pieces, so we can come back in and put the shadows, and they'll read like a curved petal. So yellow, let's do the yellow first. And this is just, we're not using shadows yet, we're going to put the shadows on afterwards. So I said lemon yellow, and I said just a little smidge of my orangey red. That's far too much. Come on. Okay. And I want it to be fairly, I want it to come out to be, well, yeah, pretty much that colour when it's done. I'm not going to bother about the edges, right? But I do want to make sure that piece in there is lighter. Okay, so, and then I'm going to come back in with my smoothing brush. This has got a fair amount of water on it. I'm just going to soften these edges. And this might look quite brutal right now, but when the thing's finished, you'll barely even notice these bits of colour out in the edges of the painting. And if something does go somewhere, you don't want it, pick it up with a bit of paper towel. Okay, so that's good. I've gotten that, just that little bit of light in there. So these, I think, I haven't got those lights on those bits, but I think that's fine. I think we'll cope, which has got my colour on. So let's do this one, but I think I probably do want to leave just a little bit of light on these pieces. I'm going to go straight in. This is just a damp brush, cleaned out with just lightly taking the excess water off on a paper towel. Alright, now there's this piece up here, which I probably do want to. This is yellow. We don't usually do very loose paintings. Certainly not with flowers. I think all the flower paintings we've done them, they're really quite tight. And you do get a nicer effect. Got a bit of a blossom there, but I'm gonna say that's okay. Right. And this is still quite light. It's probably an 8 value here. Right, and that's it for our yellow flowers. Well, the first layer anyway. Let's have a go at our pink ones. Now the pink ones, I don't think we have to be quite so careful about leaving white bits, because the difference between the light and the shadow is more pronounced on these. I think I've got yellow paint everywhere. Right. Let's do these pink ones. Now, what did we say? We said pure permanent rose, actually, didn't we? But fairly watery. And if you want to test it on a swatch, do so. A little bit more water, I think. Yeah, let's go with this. Now, my yellow ones probably haven't dried yet, but I don't mind about that. So I'm just going to go in, just bring a bit of a coward, a bit more water, and basically splurge on my pink flowers. Yay! Don't think I meant to do that. Okay, pick that up. Yeah, see. No problem. And then I've got my damp brush coming in. Now this is going to be foliage down here, which is going to be dark green. I'm not going to try not to go in too much into my yellow flowers there. If something does go into something you don't want it to, paper towels come to the rescue. And just, no, I think I'm good there. And then this one around here. Now I want a fairly crisp edge, so I'm hoping this is pretty much dried. I'm trying to just, looking at the photo, it's just pink around there. Okay, right, good. And again, washing my brush, going in with some water, pulling it out into the background. If it's going too far, pick it up. And I'm just looking at the screen. Yeah, it's maybe, yeah, it's pretty much the same value on my paper as it is on the screen. It's going to dry a lot lighter as well. So, right, and that's all we're going to do for that. We need to let it dry. So I'm going to put this on pause, and then we'll come back and do the next stage. Okay, so we're back and he's fairly dry, and he's looking, so I think he's looking fine at this stage. I'm happy with that. There's lots of soft edges, there's colour where I want it, there's slight changes of value where I want it to show the petals curving. We're good. Now, my original plan was that we'd go in and do the shadows on the flowers, but I think that is wrong. I think what we need to do is actually go in and put in these greens. I don't want, this is really quite subtle in here, and if we do it now without having any of these dark greens in to judge the value, I think we could come a cropper. So I think we're going to go in and put in some of the greens. Right, I'm going to use a 10 round for this. Now, let's mix up some green first, and then we'll talk through what we're going to do with it. So it's my lemon yellow, and I might use a little bit of blue, then a little bit of black just to take it down in value. Let's test that. Yeah, okay. It's that kind of value you want. We will do some softening because there's some lighter leaves in here, but I want to put in the greens in these gaps to define the edges of the flowers. So let's start. So where should we start? And we will go in afterwards and put in these really dark ones. Let's start with this leaf over here. I'm going to go and it's going to be fairly broad. So I'm going to, oops, as few brush strokes as I can for these, and I'm going to keep my softening brush handy. Now that looks fairly dark on there, but it will dry lighter. I'm going to soften in here, and the only ones I really want to take care about are these little spiky pieces. And then there's a bit down here, and I'm not being particularly careful about separating the leaves. The only time I'm going to be careful is when I'm next to a petal. I'm going to use the point of my brush next to a petal because the green will define that petal, and you can soften where you like. Right, let's do this. This leaf up here will define the edge of this petal, and I've kind of drawn it weirdly. So my point goes next to where the flower ends up. Then it's fairly broad as it comes down. And there you can kind of see the flower starting to come out. Right, now I'll put some colour in here, and then I'm just going to smooth through that spiky leaf. I want some colour on it, but I don't want it to be very dark. And now, using that same colour, going around this pink petal here, leaving a nice crisp edge. Well, we could soften some of these. There's that one there. It's very amorphous down here. There's not a lot of precision, and there are a couple of green leaves up there, but I'm going to leave those just for now. I'm going to do this big dark shape in here, which will define both the side of this flower and also the side of that yellow flower. I've got to be careful here because my drawing wasn't particularly accurate. Okay, and I can't see where that one ends. Oh, that's a bit of leaf, is it? Comes down. That's kind of soften that a bit through those pointy leaves, and being careful not to go through that edge of the vase. I've dribbled a bit down there. Let me just pick that bit up. Okay, I think we're good. These darks are really going to crisp things up. Let's do this leaf over here, and again this is This is defining the edge of that petal. Need a bit more colour, which I don't have. Gone a bit light and might need a bit more. Let's mix up some more. I think I'm using the wrong brush, which doesn't help. There's another bit of leaf that comes around here, and you can change the photo here. If you want to define a certain bit of petal in a certain place, just stick a leaf in. Right. I'm using the point of the brush at the ends of the leaves. Right, wow, that's not looking great, but let's see how it pans out. The plan is sound, definitely. Now, let's put a bit of colour down here in this, underneath this glass. I'm going to pick up my palette. And I'm just going to put in some shapes where these stalks are. Can I put them in? Kind of have to remember where things were. There's a big piece there. This piece comes down. And don't worry about going around the dark areas. We will go back in and define those. That's a bit of, you see a little bit of light green, put that in. That's very dark, that's kind of light there. And this piece is here. And these stalks down here as well. I'm not varying the colour at all on these, not yet. I think we can go back in afterwards and do that. You can darken them up a little bit. You can add in a little bit of red in there, which will tie them together with the rest of the flowers, add a bit of interest. Oh yes, this was a bit weird, this bit, wasn't it? Right. Maybe a little bit more colour on there. Okay. Right, now I'm going to go in. That should be reasonably dry. If not, just let it dry a bit more. A bit of bleeding is fine at this point, but you don't want it to be sopping wet. And now we're going to go in with our darkest green here. So let's mix that one up. So this is lemon yellow and black. Now I'm going to put in a bit of blue. Now this blue is going to raise the value a bit, so I'm a bit more black. Okay. I don't think that's going to be enough, but it'll be enough to start. Right, now don't really care what all these things are. All I'm doing now, I'm going in, I'm seeing there's an area of dark and I'm just painting it. I'm not going around like a big dark line around the flowers, because that will look weird. But just little pieces here and there. your brain will join them together and make them into a fairly crisp line around these petals. Right, now it's dark up here. I wonder if I need a pointier brush. And you can always go back in and do more with these darks. Can't take them out. No. Sometimes you need different shapes. There's a stalk there, which I'm just going to indicate with just some darks either side of it. Now up here is also a stalk, and also the sides of those leaves. And it takes quite a bit of concentration because I'm looking back to the photo and then looking at the painting. But I really am just looking at areas of dark. I'm going to come down into here now as well. Let's put some darks in this vase. I can see where they are. Here. They're really quite large. And I think that should be a bit dark there. And vary the sizes of them as well as the shapes of them. It's easy to get very bitty and put lots of very, very small marks in, whereas a combination of the larger marks and the smaller marks works well. I'm going to come over here now. There's some dark in here, just behind that leaf. And it comes down, that's a bit of leaf there. There's quite a large piece that comes up there. Now, I think we may have to go back in and do some. The difference between a light green, or my light green, and the dark green is too much. So when this is dry, I think we'll come back in and glaze over a little. Let's put some darks up here. Make that slightly crinkled. Yeah. It's getting there. A bit of dark here. It was dark there. Just below the rim of the vase is actually quite a lot of dark. So I'm going to put that in. That's quite a big dark there. I find the more I do this, the more confident the marks get And hopefully that makes for a bit of painting. Ding ding ding. Right, dark here. Now these bits, I'm not quite sure whether they're not green, but I think I am going to make them green. As they come down. Here. It comes down to the water level. Okay. Now, I'll just stand back and see what we're dealing with. Yeah, it's not too bad. We can cope with this. I'm tempted, and we do need to let this dry before we put anything else on it. This value's probably fine. These values in here are probably too light, and it just makes the whole thing look, there's too much contrast in there, but it's okay, it's okay. Not all is lost. Not all is lost just yet, although we have plenty of time. The nice thing about painting is that you can ruin it at a moment's notice. Right, I've got to stop fiddling with these dark bits because we need to save those until the end. Right. I think we're going to have to go in and do these roses. I am tempted to wait and put a wash over these. But maybe not. Let's try and put some shadows on these roses. Right, now let's start with this one, the pink one. As you can see, there are some hard edge shadows in here, which we'll just put in with a pointy brush. But there's also these. This is a very important part. It starts hard edged and dark, and then it fades out into the base color. So let's do that one. Now, I could suggest, like it's this piece in here, you could wet the whole thing, dampen the whole piece, and then just put some colour on, and hopefully it would bleed out and fade out nicely. I'm gonna go straight in with my pointy brush and keep a softening brush handy, and see how that goes. So I'm going to put colour just around the top of this piece. And then go straight in, which I should have had handy and I didn't. With a damp brush, just so that bleeds out. That should give us a sense of the petal. Both curving over, and I think there is some actual, there is some colour, local colour variation on that petal too. Now, this is a shadow under here that is hard edged on both sides. There we go. And every mark I'm putting in, I'm leaning back to see how it reads. So some of these are hard edged, and you just have to look and check which ones are hard edged and which ones aren't. And I might just soften that one a little. Too many hard edges could be too much. There's a nice dark bit under here, which really should, I think we should put that in. It's showing the underside of that petal. And I'm softening that and just letting the colour go into the greenery underneath. Alright, now maybe I shouldn't have said we should start with this one. Maybe practicing on one of the other ones. This is the main flower. If you get this one right, I think pretty much everything's going to look right. We can be a lot looser on the other flowers. If we get one looking okay, we're good. Softening that bottom bit, but leaving that top bit hard. Right, now in here, this is kind of tricky. Piece of colour, softening an edge, but usually leaving one edge hard. And let's go around here. And this one's also kind of, there's a bit of colour on here. I'm hoping this is reading. There's a lot of observation on this, but every time you put down a piece of colour, you need to assess how it's behaving. Okay, I think we're good. It's starting to come out as a rose. Now, this edge here, the outer petals usually have a lovely curve to them. A little bit of colour, then soften that, and it should bleed out and show the thing turning over. There we go. And there's a bit of colour in here. You don't have to put every little detail in. You put in enough until it says, yes, I'm a rose, and then stop. We might be close to that now. The middle pieces, I generally just wing a few dabs of dark. Will show that furled petal in the middle. Now, there's this petal right. I'm not going to do that petal. We're going to move up into this flower here because colour behind here is going to define the petals in front of it. So just a little bit of colour there. This is not quite what the photo is doing, but it's good for the painting. So if I just put that bit of colour in there, and there you can see that front petal is now coming forward. Right, now, so these ones need to keep light. So I'm going to put a bit of colour underneath. And then soften. Maybe just a little bit of colour down here. Okay, and then this Z shape again, so there's some colour in behind here. And then soften, but keep that rolled over petal in there. See that lighter line coming down? That's the thing that will say to everyone, oh, it's a rose. And again for this one, it's like a zigzag. And I'm not being very loose with this. I could probably be looser, but it's weird. When I'm talking, it's almost impossible. Right, yeah, I think I might have lost some, it needs a bit more depth around here. And I don't like, yeah, I might have to stop with this one in a bit because I'm fiddling. And fiddling is not good. The middle pieces. Just actually darken the outsides. Just a little bit of colour on the outside to define the edge of that. When it gets to the very middle pieces, I'm pretty much just drawing little spirals. Well, it's a bit tight that, but it'll do for now. Let's do this final pink one over on the right hand side and then we'll do these yellow ones. Right. There's quite a big shadow under here. And again, the shadow is defining the shape of the yellow flower, as well as giving some form to the pink one. It's kind of a hard shadow. I'm going to leave that hard. There is some colour out here. Actually, could I do that with my? Just a little bit of colour. Yeah, I shouldn't have done that because that's all wet. And again, this is, we want to keep this nice rolled over petal. And the pink is also defining some of that yellow flower. So put in a line of the dark colour and smooth out to show the form of that pink one. Right, and again we've got these nice diagonal petals in here. Okay, and then it gets very busy in here. So just drawing dark pieces, maybe a little bit of colour on the edge, just to define the edge of that petal. We may come back at the end and do a bit more. Because I'm describing what I'm doing and I can see it's kind of tight. I'd like it to be looser than that, but it is what it is. Yeah, especially up here. Yeah. Let's see if I shouldn't really fiddle at this point, but apparently I can't resist. right, I'm going to leave that there. I think this one needs a bit more, but I'm not going to do it right now. I think we're going to leave it and see what it looks like. I think I am going to soften that a little bit. I know it's a hard shadow, but it's leaping out at me. Right, let's have a look. Well, it's okay. It's okay. We're getting there. Now, these yellow flowers. Ooh, been dreading these. The pink ones are the easy ones. You need to get this shadow colour on these yellow flowers. Exactly the right value. You need it dark enough and the right colour so it reads as a shadow, and not too dark so it looks like stripes. Alright, now we said, didn't we, yellow ochre, bit of burnt yellow, was it? Is that going to be the right? That doesn't look like the right colour to me. I think that might be too. Bring it back with a bit more yellow. Right. So yellow ochre, actually yellow ochre and some lemon yellow. I think that's gonna be close to what we need. Right, softening brush at the ready. Let's start with this chap here. Now you can see where the shadows are, just underneath these rolled over petals. So I'm going to put in a line of colour. I'm going to soften these. I don't think I want them to be hard. I know they look quite hard on the photo. I think they need a bit of softening. How does that look? I think we might have got away with that. Right, and then this one, similar thing. This has got basically a big shadow under here. And soften it. How's that looking? That's not looking too bad, is it? And where are we? Under here. I think I've missed a petal out there, but tough. Now this is kind of a mess in here, isn't it? Gotta kind of guess what's going on. And there's a line under here. And a little bit of colour in here. This petal does fade out towards the edge. Oh dear, I'm not sure about that. Oh dear. I think I spoke too soon. Alright, a bit more. I'm going to put a bit more yellow in there. And just a little bit. Yeah, I think I'm too dark. Use this sort of drawing technique just for the middles. A little bit of colour. And this one up here. This isn't going to really look like a flower up here. This is just a bit of colour, slightly darker to define this flower in front of it. A bit of colour for that pink one. Just going to smoosh it all together. bit of bleeding there, which I don't want. Right, I'll stand back and see what damage has been wrought. It's a little bit more form on the bottom here. It's not looking as though it's curving under, which is what I want it to do. So a bit of colour at the bottom, and then my damp brush wets the rest of it and should show it just curling over. Some terrible stuff going on in there. Okay, we're good. We're good with that one. And then this final one. Bit of colour underneath. Here. And softening. Yeah, I've lost yellow. Yellow is a really bright yellow. Is a tough. It's a tough colour. Just a little bit at the bottom, just so show some form. And the rest of it, we don't need to be particularly precise about this one. This one is looking, yeah, I mean, the main one is looking good, so I'm happy. I'm going to put some marks in basically and soften bits of it. Just a bit of colour at the edge just to show that there's an edge of the flower there. Might be a bit too bitty, that. Okay. Well, yeah, this drawing went awry, but it is what it is right now. Right. Now, I think we need to put in some mid-values to take out these lights. Now, I don't know whether your painting needs this or not, but this one certainly does. So I'm going to glaze over just to make these greens in here slightly darker. My cad orange has made it. Okay. Right, lemon yellow. Try not to get any cadmium orange in it. I'm going to use some cobalt. I think that's a little bit of black just to take out some chroma. Take the value down slightly. It's fairly liquid on there, and I just want to use it to take the punch out of some of these areas. Some bits of light will be left. I just want to make those values more similar. I know I said we'd leave these ones very light, these little triangular ones. Yeah, this is really putting some colour down. Once you've identified what the problem is, that there's too much contrast, putting some colour down, then assessing it after every stroke. This one's going to be darker. This needs to be darker up here. Is there any more? Oh, there was another. Is that a leaf back there? You can put in more leaves if you want. No, that's a light one. I'm just going to paint around that. And that's a bit better. It's not great, but it's a bit better. I don't like this in here. I might try and invent a leaf up here that goes behind this rose. Ah. Okay. Right. Now that was a huge improvement. It's still not a great painting, but it was a huge improvement. Yeah. This one's a problem child, isn't it? But well, I'm not sure there's much I can do about it. Right, next, let's have a go at this vase. We need to put some colour into this. Now the colour of this is mainly this mid-value grey. Actually, I'm going to pause it, let it dry and get some clean water because I don't want my grey contaminated, so I will be back in a mo. Okay, right, vase time. Now, we need to mix up this colour grey, and if you have a value scale it might be handy because this needs to be, well, on this value scale it needs to be a 7. It's not a real 7, but well, I think it was about a 7. A 7 or an 8. This value scale isn't particularly accurate, but that's fine for now. Now, my go-to grey is ultramarine and burnt sienna, and I'm gonna just leave it this side of blue, so it's a blue grey. That's going to be too dark. Bit more water in there. Alright, okay. I think that is probably going to be okay. This is terrible paper I'm practicing on, so. Alright, now that looks slightly darker. Okay, let's risk a bit more water in that. And we're going to put in these shadow pieces on the vase to define, well, to make it look like glass. Now, and they're all going to be pretty much the same value. Let's start up here. If you can see, there are little grey pieces up here. So let's just start putting some of those in. They're just marks, making the top of that vase slightly grey. I may come back in and do some. There's some green bits in there which we'll come back to. And you get your softening brush ready. Oh, got my brush in my mouth. Just to take the edge off some of those pieces. And it's surprising how little you need just to make that look like cut glass. Right, now let's put in some of these. Now these are going to go in very broadly, basically with one stroke. The only thing you have to remember is keep this waterline crisp. Don't go through it. Keep it nice and straight, or curved in this case. I'm just worried that this is too dark. Being a coward and making it lighter, I might come back and regret that. And there are other little lines on here. So there's the grey pieces, but there's also slightly, there's white stripes in between them too. And they don't go down to the bottom, they start at the top. Yeah, a nice crisp line there. Come down. Looks very dark on the screen. I'm hoping this is going to work. And I do a bit of smoothing with that. There is some softness down there. Also, this is slightly lighter at the bottom. I'll come back and do that, but there are some white pieces. There's quite a lot of grey here. Alright, I'm going to move to a smaller brush, just put some other marks in. There's some marks down here which define the bottom of it. Oh, and I've lost all my blue. Actually, this brush is much easier. And I know this is shadow around here, but I think it does kind of define the edge. Maybe. Right. Now there's, if you can look at the photo, there's some very light lines where the waterline meets the glass. I'm just going to use my pointy brush, just very lightly put some lines in there. And then some grey pieces up here too. I've lost all my blue. It's my blue-grey gone. Kind of. If you can see some just well, this isn't working out very well, is it? I think I might need, again, like we did up here, another wash that's intermediate value. just where you can see slight grey pieces. Now I'm gonna take almost a clean brush and make that, it's a bit more blue in there. This is very, very light. So this is going to be a value in between white paper and here, just to give it a bit more subtlety in this glass. Just take off the contrast, exactly like we did with the greenery. Want something down here and here. And here. Annoyingly, I wish I'd made that bluer, but I've got it now, so it's there, it's on the paper. Another disadvantage of doing videos, you've kind of committed when you start something. Well, let's stand back, assess the damage. Oh dear. Well, we're not quite done yet. We're not quite done yet. We have a few more darks to put in down here. This might be too wet. So this is like a sort of reddish brown. So kind of your pinkish red, bit of burnt sienna, maybe a little bit of blue, just to put in a few. It's just gonna, no, it's okay. Few accents, gives it a bit of contrast down here. Let's see where that one is, and that one goes there, doesn't it? And just going to soften those slightly, because it is under glass and things do disperse a little bit. Right, and slight dark greens up here. And we've made all these light green and they're not. And they're darker towards the waterline than they are. Towards the bottom of the vase. So I'm just going to darken them up a bit. If these are a bit harsh, I might soften those. Oh, well, I think we need a few more darks up in here. So this is again a dark green, which is lamp black, and a little bit of lemon yellow. You could put a bit of blue in if you want to blue it up a bit. But I really want some dark accents back here. I don't have any. I hope it's not gonna, I don't want to do too many and ruin the whole thing. if this is gonna help or hinder. I'm just punching up the depths of these foliage pieces, greenery pieces. I suppose it's not really foliage. Just to make it look as though there's some depth to these leaves. And I'm kind of tempted to go into these flowers again, but I have a nasty feeling everything would go terribly wrong. Yeah. And I think probably down here needs a bit of punch. Also, just underneath this line, it is quite dark down here in the vase. Just gives a bit of depth to it. Yeah, I think that was a good thing. And this piece. And just little chinks here and there, defining bits, just to bring out some contrast. Not happy with that one, but I'm going to have to live with it now. We're coming very close to the end. And all right, I'm going to stand back and see. I think this is probably as far as I'm going to be able to take this. I am tempted to go back into these flowers just to put some small value changes on. Okay, I'm going to try this. This could be a terrible mistake. Actually, one thing I do want to do, there's some little green pieces just on the tops of this vase edge that I did want to do. Just gives a little bit of more dimensionality to it. Okay, that's nice. Now this, I don't know if I want to put more shadow onto this because it might just draw attention to the fact it's not very good. But I'm just gonna try and put in a few of these very intense shadows, which is my permanent rose and lemon yellow, to mix up kind of a deep orangey colour. Oops, I'll do. Just to see if a few accents here and there will help. I have a nasty feeling the answer's no. But, oh, there it is. could be too much. And teeny tiny bits. Softening this out. I'm just putting these in because I can see them. We didn't paint them. And I think I should quit while I'm ahead. Yeah, there's things I'd like to change, but I think we're done. Okay. Phew. So while I'm here, actually, I will show you. I did one the other night, very, very quickly, no video. It's more of a sketch than anything, but I just wanted to put them both side by side to show you the difference. This is much looser. You can see I've lost a lot more edges on my flowers, and they look fresher. This hasn't got much of the fawn defined, but it kind of reads better. There's some more blending of the colours. My vase is a lot. Well, actually, no, that's maybe it's not so bad. It's not so bad, but I think this has a life to it, but this one doesn't, and it's part of it's the result of having to talk through things. And but anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it was interesting and useful, and I will see you next time.